Welcome to Desktop Prototyping Essentials in Framer. My name is Akram Khalid, and in this video, we're going to learn about default components. The two components that we are highlighting are buttons and inputs. If you are watching this video from YouTube, be sure to click the link in the description below to follow along in Framer. Before we begin, make sure to switch pages in the upper left corner to follow along with the correct part of the tutorial. Default components are a collection of interactive code components, each built for speed and ease of customization. To see the full list of default components available, open the Insert menu and click Default Components. You can do that by selecting the I key on the keyboard or by heading to the top menu bar and selecting Insert. From there, you can explore the different collections or search for what you want. Selecting the default components allows you to view all the different types of default components available. If we wanted to just search, we can do that as well. Searching for button allows us to easily find the button default component that we want. Selecting button, you can hit the return key on your keyboard or select insert to get it onto your frame. Now with the button selected, go ahead and hit Command 2 on your keyboard, or if you're on Windows, hit Control 2 to bring the button into frame. This will allow us to zoom in and work closely with the button. In the right panel, you can see various options for our button. The first option being text, which says Hello Framer. We can change it to say Explore. You can align the text via left, right, or center. Typically buttons are centered, so we'll leave it as such. Then we have the option to add a shadow. We're going for more of a flat UI, so let's go ahead and disable the shadow. And for our font, we're using the Poppins font across our entire application. So let's go ahead and select Poppins with the medium font weight. Then we have a disabled attribute, which we can disable the button. We don't need to disable our button, so go ahead and leave it as no. Then we have our states. The following states are default, hover, pressed, and disabled. We'll get to those later on. For our BG color, we're going to go ahead and select a shared color by the value of blue 50. Next for padding, go ahead and bring that down to 0. And for the radius, it's a bit too round, so let's bring it down to 8. Regarding the font size, we could leave that as 14, and the hover scale and tap scale, leave it as is, and we'll return to that in a bit. Let's move to the top now and adjust the width. Let's set the width to 168 and the height to 48. Now in the left panel, let's go ahead and select the buttons page starter and hit Command 2 on the keyboard. This will zoom us out and set the button page starter to frame. Go ahead and hit the preview in the top right section, and now we can start interacting with the button. As we start hovering and tapping the button, there's these different states that we had mentioned earlier that we can customize specifically on how the button should react. If we close out of the preview tab, select the button and hit Command 2 to bring the button back into frame, we can start playing with the different states to create different effects. Selecting the state dropdown and switching to the hover state, we can go ahead and change the background color and set it to the blue 70. We can now switch over to the pressed state and set it to blue 50. Going back to the default state, let's go ahead and change the hover scale. If we drag the right panel out a bit, we could read it and it won't truncate the text. For our hover scale, let's switch it from 1.1 to 1.025. That way it could have a very light scaling effect for when we hover on the button. And for our tap scale, currently it's at 0.95, let's go ahead and switch it to 0.9. Now let's take a look at how our button turned out. Selecting the buttons page starter, you can hit Command 2 and preview the page in the top right. Now when we hover on the button, it gets darker, and when we tap it, it changes the color back to the blue 50 and has a bit of scale. I think I want to change the fact that when I hover, it shouldn't scale, it should only change the color. Go ahead and close out the preview, select the button, hit Command 2 to zoom it back in, and for the hover scale, I'm going to set it back to 1, and for the tap scale, let's go ahead and put it back to 0.95. Go ahead and select the buttons page starter and preview again. Perfect. This is exactly what I was looking for. Let's go ahead and close out of the preview and position the button exactly where we want it on the page. Go ahead and grab it and drag it to where we approximately want it. Dragging an element into another frame will automatically make it its child. So now that the left navigation is our parent, I can select the button and align it left, right, or centered to its parent, which is the left nav. Let's go ahead and adjust the margin and make sure it's 16 pixels margin top of our upgrade to Budget Pro. Now we could preview our design, and our button is exactly where we want it, and our design is complete. The next default component we'll be covering are inputs. With Framer, we can add fully functioning input fields with customizable focus and blurred states. Support for password and text field modes are available when using the inputs default component. To get started, we can select the insert button in the top bar. This will open up our Explore panel, and from here we can select default components and then search for the input. Go ahead and insert the input on our page. And then selecting the input, we can hit Command 2 or Control 2 to bring it into frame. The very first option we have is the placeholder option, where we can update the text. We'll switch the placeholder text to say search for anything related to your account. And then we'll adjust the width, setting it to a width of 480. We can also adjust the value, and I'll just type in hello here, and it will show the current value that it has, which in our case, we want it to leave it as empty, so we'll go ahead and erase the value of hello. I'll then select the text color and set it to the black shared color, then selecting the placeholder color, and what we're going to do here is create our own shared color. We can select the color value. Currently it's set at HSL, but we'll want to switch it to a hex code value. We'll set the color to 9A, 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 and then from there, if we wanted to add this color as a shared color, we can click the plus button next to the shared colors, and then we can create a new shared color and call it placeholder. Next, we'll want to adjust the background color of our input. Selecting the background color, I'm going to bring down the opacity or the fill percentage down to 0. This will get rid of any background color. And then for our border, it's already set to have a fill of 0, but if we select this red color and raise the fill, you can see that the border is rounded and it shows. Let's go ahead and turn that back down. And then if we switch gears to the focus color, what the focus color represents is when we select the input, it's going to have this light blue focus around it. And we really don't want that. We're going for a much cleaner minimal look, so we'll turn the fill all the way down. Then for our font, let's go ahead and select custom and select the Poppins font. Our font weight will stay regular and our font size will be down to 14 pixels. And then for our padding, it's already set to 12 pixel padding across all of the sides. But if we only wanted to adjust the left side, what we could do is select the second option here, and then we can edit the left side. We'll set it to 24 pixels, and this will add additional padding only to our left side of our input. Our radius is going to be set to 10. And then we also have two options at the bottom, text area and password. We'll leave both of them set to no. Text area will turn our input into a text area, and the password will hash the values we enter, providing that black circle for each keys so that you don't see the password value we're entering. And then finally, we have our keyboard, which this really only applies to mobile devices, but you can set the type of keyboard you want for when you focus on the input. Next thing we want to focus on is adding a search icon to our input. Go to the top bar and select insert, and from here we'll search for search. This will provide us a search icon through feather icons. Go ahead and select insert to get it on your inputs page, and then selecting both the search input and the icon, we're going to go ahead and create a new frame for both of them. And to do that, you can right click and add frame, or you can hit Command Return on Mac and Control Enter on Windows. We'll go ahead and name this frame search input. And then selecting the icon, let's go ahead and align it to the left. And then decrease the size from 24 pixels width and height to 16 pixels. Now let's go ahead and edit the color of our search icon. And what we'll select is the placeholder shared color. If we wanted to preview, you can hit the play button in the top right. This will open up a preview screen to where we can start interacting with our input. And if we select the input and start typing, you can see that now it shows the value text that we're entering. Okay, so go ahead and close out of the preview screen. And then what we're going to do is just adjust the position of this search input. We can select the inputs page and hit Command 2 or Control 2 on our keyboard to fit the entire page into frame. And then we'll grab this entire search input frame. Be sure to grab the frame and not the individual items inside the search input frame. And then we'll drag it towards the top left area. Hitting the Option or Alt key and hovering on different elements, we can view the exact margins that it holds to different elements in the surrounding areas. So we would want it 128 pixels margin left from our left nav, which is a total of 448 pixels left of our entire artboard, and then set the position of top to 56 pixels. Okay, that's the perfect positioning for us. We'll go ahead and hit the preview one last time, and then we can just type away as we would like. This is exactly what we're looking for when we're working with a global search input. This marks the completion of learning about buttons and inputs from default components.